Hello, today is Wednesday, April 8th, and welcome to episode 580 of Fault Lines, the National Security Institute's podcast that gets you quickly up to speed 3 times a week on the national security and foreign policy debates shaking up America. I'm NSI Senior Fellow Jessica Jones, and I'm joined today by Advisory Board Member Les Munson and Fellows Algene Saldry and Jamie Jackson. All right, folks, over the last couple of days, it's been a kind of chaotic start to the week. We've seen some wild swings in foreign policy and diplomacy in the latest developments between U.S. and Iran. If you guys remembered over the weekend on Sunday, the president tweeted about Power Plant Tuesday, and then in a very wild Easter celebration at the White House, also talked on Iran, and the day escalated with comments about from the president about possibly ending Iranian civilization if they didn't come to the table. But since then, we've had a ceasefire that's been announced between Iran and the U.S. There is a short 2-week pause in major offensive operations while both sides keep defensive forces in place. And the Strait will actually be open to commercial traffic. Iran will actually be charging ships that transit through, though. It doesn't seem, this isn't a peace agreement. It doesn't resolve anything, but we do have a pause. I know, Les, you're always cautious about timelines that come out from the Trump administration. So I'm curious to think what folks think about 2 weeks. The agreement was brokered through Pakistan, which we talked about a little bit, a couple episodes ago about their power as a negotiator in this conflict. And it hinges on Iran maintaining safe passage for ships through the Strait, which, as we've talked about, is a critical global shipping route. So this could be a development. This could not be a development. We're not sure. So I want to see what you guys think about it. Jamie, I want to turn first to you. What do we make of the president's comments about the threats that came earlier this week? What do we see the White House announcing and talking about now that we have this, pause announced?
I think the word for the day is whiplash. I mean, just a few days ago, we had the president talking about ending Iranian civilization. And then we woke up this morning to post on social media about peace. So I think everyone is just kind of like holding their breath, looking to see what's next. We have foreign policy and deal making through social media now, which I would personally caution against because even though we have this announced 2-week ceasefire, we could wake up tomorrow and the president could decide on a whim that he wants to call everything off if he wakes up, with a change of heart. And so that's kind of scary. I was just listening to a press briefing this morning from Secretary Hegseth and the chairman of the Joint Chiefs, where they touted that this was a historic military operation for the United States. And I would just question, what their definition of success is when you look at what the original stated goal is. I mean, I think if the goal was to show U.S. military superiority and prowess, I don't think that was ever in question. And I think that could have been done in a more effective way via a unilateral or joint military exercise that wouldn't have resulted in the loss of service members and civilians. And so I think what we have now is Iran has been able to assert their dominance over the Strait of Hormuz. And I think that's what we've essentially walked away with at this point. And so, I'm looking to see what Congress does. They've been largely silent. I know they've coming off of a 2-week Easter recess, but this has really kind of chipped away at their authority to be able to authorize military operations. I'm even seeing where supposedly Senator Lindsey Graham wants to approve any permanent peace deal. But I think it's a little late right now for Congress to kind of be inserting themselves in this process. And so still looking to see what's next.
Algene, what do you think the U.S. got? The president is the ultimate deal maker. We have a deal, even if it's a temporary deal. What did we get? I'm pretty sure the Strait was open before 6 weeks ago and ships were going through. And I think I read the Iranian officials announced that the Ayatollah actually had to sign off on the agreement, which doesn't seem like a regime change. So where are we right now?
President J.D. Vance, who said this is a very fragile truce. I mean, Iran's 10-point plan is actually laughable. It's kind of expected, though, because obviously they knew Trump was pretty much desperate to end this war. You can tell by their trolling responses to Trump's absolutely embarrassing social media posts, as Jamie pointed out. The Iranians know that the president is desperate and needs an end to end this war. And the vice president said Trump is impatient to end it. So, that's an interesting note. So we have an Iranian proposed plan, this 10-point plan, that would require their continued control over the Strait of Hormuz, acceptance of their enrichment program, lifting of all primary and secondary sanctions. It requires U.S. military withdrawal from the Middle East, an end to attacks on Iran and its allies, the release of frozen Iranian assets, and a UN Security Council resolution making the deal binding. So the plan also calls for expanded Iranian control over the Strait of Hormuz, as Jamie pointed out, and at a substantial fee potentially. So the strait was open for free before this unnecessary war, and I mean, if these terms are correct, they leave the United States significantly worse off than it was before the war, and they leave Iran not only stronger but far richer. This is what Trump was claiming victory for, saying it's workable basis to negotiate, from which to negotiate. Imagine if Obama had negotiated such a plan. I mean, Obama's JCPOA was deemed wholly unacceptable by Trump, and it would have kept the Strait of Hormuz open for free, would have limited Iran's uranium enrichment, required Iran to agree to make no nuclear weapons, and to allow IAEA inspectors to access their nuclear facilities and confirm their full compliance. So what do we have as a result of this war? I think it's really important to kind of take heed to what Ben Rhodes actually noted yesterday, that we're left with thousands of innocent civilians, including hundreds of children, dead in Lebanon, Iran, and Israel for no reason. U.S. troops killed and wounded, as Jamie pointed out. U.S. embassies and bases badly damaged. American standing in the world is tarnished. And U.S. munitions have been depleted. Hundreds of billions of American tax dollars have been spent. The prices for oil and travel and shipping and consumer goods are up everywhere. So, I mean, we're kind of in a full-blown global economic crisis that is tied to this conflict as well. So I don't think that we're in a good place. And it's yet to be seen whether this deal is actually workable, as the president has claimed.
Wow, that is quite a report card that Algene just gave to where we stand right now. Les, what's your report card right now on the conflict? Give us some grades.
Well, it's an incomplete because we're not done. And Algene, I'm going to totally disagree with you on this on the take here. So with all due respect, and that was well articulated, but I'm gonna have a totally different take, which is the U.S. has actually, in the last 6 weeks, has actually accomplished all of the military goals it has stated for this conflict, which is the elimination of Iran's Navy, Air Force, missile systems, another hit on the Iranian nuclear weapons program, which I think we should all acknowledge is going to need regular maintenance over time. This idea of mowing the lawn with Iran may be something that we and the Israelis have to do on a regular basis. But this was a pretty good cut of the lawn down to about a putting green level, I would say, which means it's going to take a while to grow back. And so the achievements of what the U.S. has done here, I think, are significant. The Iranian leadership is gone. Yes, new leadership has emerged. It's unclear to me how well they're going to be able to maintain the apparatus of the Iranian state. And Iran's fundamental premise of relying on a nuclear weapons program to achieve international legitimacy is now gone. The only thing they have left is possible control of the Strait of Hormuz, which is a completely different thing and is going to completely change the way they deal with the rest of the world, including China, which has been one of their backers, and all of their neighboring states. So the Iranian regime as such is in a very precarious position now. And with the halting of hostilities, and I do hope that lasts for a while, frankly, you could see the return of protests from the Iranian people. This regime is wildly unpopular in Iran. It's more unpopular in Iran than it is in Europe and in some sectors of America. So the Iranian people now have a chance to really kind of do some stuff. That's how this agreement should be judged, is on the future conditions of the Iranian nuclear weapons program, Iranian support for militias abroad, and the overall approach of the regime to its neighbors and the rest of the world. That is how this deal will be judged at the end of the day. We are just at the first step here of what the negotiation looks like. Yes, it was done in a very Trumpy way with crazy public statements that I think we all kind of interpreted a certain way. That's fine. This was the guy who got elected. Here we are. And now the way forward is his success here will be judged on those terms, in my view. So I'm giving him an incomplete. I think we'll know a lot more in a couple months.
Les, I'm surprised you didn't bring up Jamie's point about Congress, who are now back from Easter recess. Are they going to do anything?
Well, it was excellent to bring up, and I love that Lindsey Graham wants Congress to approve the deal. By the way, I don't know why Congress has to. It should be the Senate approving a treaty. It should be a treaty. The Senate should approve it if you want this thing to last. By the way, this was the big problem with the JCPOA, which wasn't even an agreement. It was a plan of action, whatever that is. One of the worst deals we've ever had, was never contemplated as being submitted to the Senate or to Congress. We had to force the administration through law to even disclose what the words were in the plan of action. I'm using air quotes for those of you who are listening. Don't get me started. I have to talk about the JCPOA and INARA in class tonight. And boy, I'm already getting ramped up, and class isn't for another 9 hours.
He's threatening the end of student civilization tonight, actually. Yep. That's Les's theme for tonight's class. Okay, well, I guess we've got an incomplete. We've got some different scorecards. We'll keep track as we move forward, as we have to. Thanks so much to Kelly Crowley, Grace Trice, Claude Jennings, and the entire NSI staff and for their help in producing today's episode. Join us on Friday, April 10th for another episode of Fault Lines, NSI's podcast that gets you smart fast. We're up on YouTube. We're everywhere you get your podcasts. Listen to us. If you like what you heard or saw, be sure to rate, review, and subscribe.